Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Big Number Natter Live. My name is Timmy Roman Johnson. I am the founder of a financial education company called Mr. Money Jar and a national numeracy ambassador. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that I'm sure is on everyone's minds. We're going to be talking about money, and we have 4 esteemed panelists who will be talking to you about this topic today, and I'll turn to them to introduce themselves, starting with Abby.
My name is Abigail Foster and I am the founder of Ellent Financial Education. We teach finance in schools all over the UK, and I personally teach a lot on social media as well.
Thank you, Abby.
I'm Claire Barrett. I am the consumer editor at the Financial Times newspaper. I present the Money Clinic podcast, which you might listen to. It comes out every Tuesday. And I often am to be found whittering on about money and numeracy on TV and radio.
Thank you so much, Claire.
My name is Katie Watts and I work for moneysavingexpert.com. I'm a consumer campaigner. You can often find me in the corridors of Westminster or with regulators or in with businesses trying to fight consumers' corner.
Hello everyone, I'm Sam Sims. I'm the Chief Executive of the charity National Numeracy, which supports people to build their confidence with numbers and using everyday maths, particularly through National Numeracy Day, which is of course today.
Thank you so much, panelists. Just a couple notes for everyone. Firstly, this conversation is being live streamed and will be available on the National Numeracy website afterwards. So we have the unique situation of having a live audience and a live stream. And please use the comments and chat function on YouTube and Zoom to ask the panel questions during the Q&A, which we'll come on to at the end. So we have 25 minutes of discussion, roughly, and then we'll have 30 minutes of questions. I'd like to kick off with the first question, and I'll start with you again, Abby. And it's, what was your relationship with maths like, both past and present?
Past was quite strong because I have dyslexia, and in my school's eyes, that meant I couldn't do English and that I could only do maths. And so if you had to be strong at something, that's where I was going to be. So I kind of leaned into maths as being technically my strong suit and did it all the way up to A-level. I won't say I enjoyed A-level maths. I don't know if anyone actually does. I think you persevere because you enjoy it to a certain extent. And then present, I use it all the time now. What I do. I am so lucky to be able to teach finance in schools, and part of that is often being like, okay, can we just throw some maths in here? And obviously the kids are usually devastated, but we're trying to bring maths and money kind of together and talk about it.
Yeah, and as a fellow creator, I'm a huge fan of yours and love your content.
Thank you.
Your relationship with maths, past and present, Claire?
Well, yes. So I was the opposite of you. I was very good at English in school. My dad's an English teacher, so kind of made sense. And not so confident with maths. I was never the fastest person in the classroom, and I was always scared of shouting out the wrong answer and looking like an idiot, which I think, you know, most people are. So I managed to get into the top set for maths when they setted us off. So obviously I had competency and I could do it, but what I didn't have was confidence. And the other thing that I didn't have was any idea about what any of this boring old crap that we were having to learn about was for, to put it mildly. I'm tempering my language, because loci, trigonometry, arithmetic. If Bobby Seagull was here, he would say, "Oh, you know, the beauty of mathematics." But it was only when I started work experience and then doing a part-time job at the age of 15 that the numeracy and the arithmetic and the finance of maths actually made the subject come alive for me, because I was working in a music shop selling guitars. There was sales commission. That was money that I earned. If I sold a guitar for 100 quid, I got to keep, you know, pounds, £10, whatever it was. You know, there were lots of things that they had to work out that involved maths, like what was the value of the stock if we did a stock take, how much money is there sitting on the company's balance sheet that they've got there, and all of a sudden, numbers had a purpose and they made sense. And I think if I hadn't have got that job and then gone on to work for a few years in sales before I went to university, I don't think I would have become a financial journalist, because there was nothing in maths at school for me that taught me anything about finance or the real world. And as somebody who's the trustee of Flick, which is the FT's financial literacy charity, and a strong supporter of National Numeracy Day, that's absolutely something that I want to change, and we need to get it on the curriculum, primary and secondary school.
Thank you for sharing your journey with us, Claire. Katie?
Well, kind of like Abby, I was quite strong at maths and I took it up to A level. I really enjoyed the sort of logical part of maths as well, when there was a sort of a reasoning question. But then I hit a wall when I was in my A levels, and suddenly it stopped making sense for me, and that really knocked my confidence, to the extent where most of my A-level papers I'd got like an A or a B on, and then my last paper was completely ungraded. I was that poor, and it just didn't make any more sense to me. And for years after that, I avoided sort of having to deal with mathematics in my daily life. And I went to university and I actually studied film production. I went to film school, and I started having to deal with time codes again and budgets. And my specialty was being a producer. So yeah, that got me back into it very gently and enabled me to sort of think about my own relationship with money and with numbers again.
Thank you. I'm noticing a theme here, the A-level maths situation. I didn't do A-level maths, but I had some friends that did. Completely different language.
Yeah.
Sam?
Well, for me, probably like millions of people, if I'm faced with a maths question and put on the spot, have to answer it, particularly if it's in front of other people, that makes me feel anxious. It makes me feel scared. And that's always been the case. I need, you know, I know I can do it. It takes me a little bit longer. So I want to have that opportunity, that time to think it through. And when I was at school, I think that started from when I was at school. But and I was, I was kind of comfortable with maths, but I didn't really see its use. And it wasn't until I had a teacher that started to relate the maths that we were learning in the classroom to the maths that we were going to use in our lives, and could see that that was a great way to get through to me and many others. That's when the penny dropped and things started to change. That's when I started to embrace it and became comfortable and started to enjoy it. But it's only when I started to see the value.
Thank you very much, all. And then on to the first money question, and I'll stay with you, Sam, for this one. How can number confidence help us to make the most of our money? Because as I think we've all shared, the relationship between maths and money is quite interlinked.
Yeah, I think one aspect, I think, is a lack of confidence with numbers and being able to use everyday maths can, I know, lead many people to avoiding engaging with their finances in the first place. And we know about this. Dr. Linda, renowned psychologist, talks from National Numeracy Day on our website about some tips around building confidence and thinking about avoidance as well, and how to address that. So first off, it can actually prevent us from getting started. It can prevent us from engaging, building confidence, starting to address that fear we might experience with numbers and with maths can actually start to open the door to our finances, start us to feel more empowered, more in control, and then starting to work through our decision making. So that's really what confidence can give us, the confidence to engage, to start to work through our finances and work out how to make the most of our money.
Do you agree with that, Katie?
Yeah, I do. And I think also it gives you a level of independence as well, your ability to handle numbers with money, not just sort of so that you can make yourself financially resilient and sort of make sure that you have an emergency fund, but also to sort of have a bit of media literacy, you know, when you're being told things in the press about how money works or any new policies that are about money, you can have the chance to sort of actually scrutinize it and figure out A, if it's been misreported, or B, if something has been sort of announced and they've made it look better than it is. So, you know, it can help you to do that, and also to not take things as read when somebody tells you. If a bank tells you this is the best product for you, that might not always be the best product for you. This is why we've had lots of mis-selling scandals. So I think, you know, confidence with numbers is really helpful for that sort of personal independence over your finances as well.
Yeah, I think that media literacy point is really important, because so much in the press is around facts and figures and percentages and stuff. What are your thoughts, Claire?
Well, I would say to anyone watching who has a fear of numbers, some of the most important numbers when it comes to your personal finances are not ones that are necessarily on a calculator, but ones that are in your diary or on your calendar. Because I think that, you know, 90 to 95% of getting your personal finances right is about organisation.
I agree.
And knowing what's coming up, and giving yourself enough time to either shop around if it's something that you have to renew every year, like your insurance. Obviously, great information on Money Saving Expert website for all of these things, being able to compare different credit cards, knowing when deals are going to come to an end. 1.5 million households will see their mortgage rate expire this year. They could be going from 1% to 7%. That could add, you know, £400, £500, £600, £700 a month to their payments if they're not ready for that. But what I see a lot of in my sort of various different journalistic roles within finance, and it's with very wealthy people who read the FT as well as not so wealthy people who maybe listen to the podcast or watch Lorraine, is anxiety about money. You know, you can have a lot of money and be anxious. You can have absolutely no money or have debts and be anxious too. Anxiety affects us all with our finances, and it can be a real barrier, as you were saying, to actually dealing with problems that we might have with money. But ignoring that anxiety, I mean, I call it being an ostrich in my book, burying your head in the sand. There are a lot of ostriches. Hands up, I used to be an ostrich. There is life after being an ostrich. It is possible to turn things around, but money can be really overwhelming, and I think no more so than at the moment. But just, you know, little things at a time. And I would say your first step, either have a paper diary. I favour a paper diary because I'm an old dinosaur, or get very good with, you know, having notes on your phone or like a way of organising yourself, and a lot of your problems will reduce.
Yeah, I would say the way I find with the next generation is don't talk about numbers. Just integrate it in different ways. So talk about sports. How can we talk about sports professionals and the impact they have on things like the stock market? Like, as an example, when Lewis Hamilton obviously joined Ferrari, we saw Ferrari stock rise. And actually, that's the way you can integrate sports and changes in sportsmen into stocks and investing. And then, and in theory, numbers, like that's what's happening, is numbers are moving around.
Taylor Swift.
Yeah, Taylor Swift. Yeah, and the economy, the Eras tour is like boosting every economy in the world. That woman is just, I feel like she should just be the global president and we'd all be fine with it. I think I'd be fine with that anyway. And I think, you know, how can you make it not too much of like, these are numbers you have to think about, and actually kind of zoom out and think, what are you interested in? How can I make that interesting to you? And use numbers to do that.
Very interesting, Abby. And when you say the next generation, what's the age range of students that you teach?
So I teach from year 1 to year 13.
What's that in old money?
That is like 6, 7, all the way up to 18. I think year 2, which is obviously that like year 7, is like a room full of your own cheerleaders. There is nothing more empowering than teaching a year 2 class. And yeah, they're really in that next generation. They're so invested. I feel like they're they're the most invested generation when it comes to numbers and finance in general. I'm really proud when I go and teach in these schools, because I know that like they're asking all the right questions, because they are asking about what does inflation mean. And I love that term, like media literacy, because there is so much that the media put out there and they don't often explain very well. Like never Claire, but obviously other journalists sometimes will like sweep over with lots of acronyms and lots of jargon, and
there's lots of assumed knowledge.
There is,
and
tons.
It's very hard for people to put their hand up and say, I don't understand that. Could you explain it? And I find myself using that phrase as a financial journalist again and again and again, because I just say it with impunity, like, I'm sorry, Mr. Analyst, I don't understand that. Can you explain it? And very often they can't. Because it sounds really great using all of these acronyms, and you say, well, what does GDP actually mean? And I'm always for simplifying and making things easier to understand, because all too often in the financial industry, without being too controversial, it pays for them to complicate things, because then we have to hire somebody to explain it for us in the form of a financial advisor, or buying a product, as Katie said, that may not be suitable for us. So, we absolutely have to be on our guard as consumers, and we have a duty to educate ourselves with the amazing free, often, resources that are available online to do so.
Thank you. Quick check-in with the floor. You enjoying this conversation so far? Hope you're enjoying it at home. We have 4 more kind of general questions, and then a final question about what people can do to feel more confident with numbers, so that we can get through the discussion and have time for questions at the end. I'm actually going to give 1 question to each of the panelists for the next 4, and feel free to volunteer yourselves. So the first question is, if I don't feel confident with numbers, what are the first steps I can take to get to grips with my finances? Who would like to? Okay, we have a hand.
I'll volunteer. Something that I find myself telling people all the time is it's not about being able to do it in your head. And once you take that pressure off of yourself, it suddenly becomes much less insurmountable as a task. Like, it's not about being able to do complex division in your head. You can use a calculator. Your phone is your friend. And then the second thing I think is just start thinking about value for money when you're buying things. So, if you're going to the shop, look at 2 bags of rice and which one is the best value per 100 grams. And that's quite easy to sort out. You just, look at, sometimes it's even on the shelf for you. Value for money can also just be what works out best for you. Like for me, I pay for a cleaner once every other week, so that I have 1 week where I don't have to do it. And that for me is valuable for my mental health. So this isn't about, massively stringing back. It's little changes at a time. And one of the best tips I ever got for value for money was, if I'm thinking of spending money on something, to try and work out how many hours I'd have to work to be able to afford it. And we call it the demotivator at Money Saving Expert, because it does help you kick the little habits as well, like daily coffees or the magazine that you've got a subscription to that you don't really read. But also, if you're looking at, buying something a little bit higher quality that you're looking at and you're thinking, that's quite expensive, isn't it? But, you're working out in your head, okay, well, I'll have to work, maybe 10 hours to afford it. But, in the long run, that will probably last me 10 years. So, just start to apply little things to every little financial decision you're making, and you're just a little bit at a time is a lot better than trying to suddenly become a money expert over your finances.
That's an awesome response. So in summary, don't be afraid to use tools. Use a calculator. Think about value for money. So value your time as much as you value your money, but also think about how long it will take you to work to earn the money to buy something. And I have a metric that's similar to that last one. It's called cost per use. And it actually applies to things like headphones. I used to buy £5 headphones religiously when I was younger, and they'd break every 6 months. And then when I took the plunge and bought a more expensive pair of headphones, they've lasted me longer because they're higher quality. So I think about cost per use a lot.
Agree.
And you want to quickly chip in on that response?
Yeah, I lean into cost per use. Anything I really want in my life, I'm like, well, I'm going to wear it all the time. I might not, but that's my my angle on it for sure.
Awesome.
And the other one I'd add maybe is it's about people taking their time and feeling comfortable taking their time when it comes to building confidence. We're often with decisions put on the spot. And that I know from speaking to lots of people who struggle with everyday maths, being put on the spot creates fear, stress, anxiety, And also, this is a real vulnerability.
It's
So
how fraudsters bamboozle us.
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
and I think both absolutely that. So many people that I speak to, I experience this myself, where as a result, you find it hard to trust. You find it hard to trust the information that you're being given, and so when you're put on the spot to make a decision, particularly using your money, that lack of trust can really get in the way, and you also feel scared to kind of admit that vulnerability. It's not something you want to say, well, I'm struggling to understand it. Many of us don't feel comfortable doing that, but what I would say is that taking a moment, not being forced into making a quick decision, but taking a step back, because many of the people, again, that we work with at National Numeracy can do it, are getting there. It's just sometimes it's the time element. And actually, we all learn and work in different ways. And for some people, that means taking their time, working through it, working through the options, and then making a decision. So I think
If you don't understand, it doesn't mean that you're the stupid person.
Mm.
It means that
Absolutely.
the explanation that's been provided by whoever it is isn't good enough. And like we say on Money Clinic, there are no stupid questions when it comes to money. The only stupid thing is not asking one, because then you could be stuck with a decision that's wrong, a product that you don't understand, and for what? For saving face, and saying to your mortgage broker or to somebody at the end of the phone from the bank, like, can you just explain to me one more time, how this works? Nobody's going to say, oh, you're such an idiot for not understanding this, but we still feel like idiots for wanting to ask, but don't.
Yeah, I think what I think is really important to say to anybody that's struggling with the numbers or struggling with the maths that's involved to work out their finances, however you feel, you're not alone.
No.
Millions of other people will feel similarly. So that vulnerability is shared, and I think hopefully that's helpful. You shouldn't feel stupid, as you say. You should ask the questions, take your time.
Yeah, thank you as always, Sam, for focusing on feelings. I'm quite a stats and figures person, so it's good to remember like the feelings and the emotions behind money as well. The next question, this one's quite a juicy one. What are your top tips for budgeting with our monthly income and outgoings? Who'd like to take this one?
Well, I can jump in first, if you like. I think there's a lot of kind of panicking about budgeting and thinking like, there have to be rules, and the rules have to be abided by. I think that the first rule of budgeting should be observation. Like people say, they get to the end of the month, where's all the money gone? Well, have the confidence to have a really good look at your accounts. Also look in your phone, what's on the subscriptions tab, because often these payments that go off that come out in a big lump and we don't really know what they're for. I'm sure that other people on the panel have got much better tips about budgeting than I have. The sort of alternative one I would give is like, there's only so much winnowing down and doing more with less that we can do, cutting things out. I would really encourage anybody watching to think about growing the pie. Like, how can you increase your earnings? What are other colleagues doing that's helped them move up in their career, or other friends? If you're somebody who's watching this and you're still at school or at university, before you set your heart on a particular career, like journalism, which is very vocational, we all know it doesn't really pay all that much. So it's like, do you know this before you get into it? Is that an expectation that you have in your head? Or do you think that, do you have unrealistic expectations about the sort of money that you can earn? Can you start a side hustle? Can you do something on the side? Can you move jobs? We had the head of the IFS, which is the Institute of Fiscal Studies, very, very big think tank, came on the podcast a while ago to talk about pay rises. And he was saying for younger people, one of the quickest ways to get a pay rise is simply to move company, because in order to winkle you out and get you to go to a rival, they're going to have to pay more. Now you can end up in this game of brinksmanship where you're saying, okay, well, company B has offered me this, and I want to stay with you, company A. Will you match this? There's only so many times that you can get away with doing that. But I think with the jobs market as it is at the moment, it's definitely worth thinking about, even if you don't want to move, just having a little check every now and again to see, like, where is the market for your particular skills, and if the market isn't looking so great, then what skills are in demand, and is that something that you could invest some of your money into doing. And I know that everyone on this panel has had either a career change or has done a qualification or something else. I've learned about how to do video editing in the last 10 years. So, you know, we're all still learning, and all of those skills can be valuable to expanding our earnings potential.
I think budgeting's a habit as well. Like any habit, you don't just, like if you go to the gym, you don't start going 5 days a week on week 1, right? It starts with small little changes, and then it becomes second nature, and then it just becomes something you do without thinking, like riding a bike. So we have some little tactics that kind of just help people that haven't really done that before to start. So we have something called the 1p challenge. So on the 1st of January, you put a penny in. On the 2nd, you put 2p right up until the 365th day. You can do it backwards. You can print out a sheet with all the different contributions in and just put in what you can afford that day. That gets you nearly £700 by the end of the year.
667.
There you go. Clearly you're better with mental numeracy than I am. But yeah, the 1p challenge is a really great way of doing it. Just having a jar by the door to put your change in, rounding up on your banking app so that, you know, a few pennies goes in at the end. And also, if you wanted to buy something and you didn't buy it, put that money aside, and then at the end of the month, you know, you've got a little bit of a security fund if you're sort of near the bottom. So, you know, I saw shamefully a piece of clothing that I really wanted to buy that was probably a little bit too expensive, and I could have probably stretched and afforded it. I put that money away instead because I didn't buy it, as a little reward for myself. I still tapped into it at the end of the month because I needed to, but you know, it starts the habit rolling. It starts that emotional connection to what you're putting aside, and that sort of ability to choose when something is worth it for you.
Tim Harford, the FT columnist, a tip that he gave me is like, if he really wants something, he'll put it, like, he loves spreadsheets, and like I've learned to love spreadsheets. So he has a spreadsheet of like things I haven't bought. So say he sees like some fancy piece of tech, because he's very into his tech, and he'll think, right, well, I'll put that in, you know, that's £200 that I haven't spent. And when you add these things up, obviously over time, you know, that's quite a lot of money that you could have blown, like you said, but also you look back over those things, and we're talking about making decisions in the heat of the moment. Well, I mean, somebody used to be the retail correspondent for the FT. Retailers, discounts. They want us to make a decision to buy, and the buy now, pay later companies want to lend us the money to pay for it in installments. And if you're somebody who's tempted by that, I mean, just having that habit of saying, I'm just going to put all of these things that I thought I wanted and make a record of it. And you look through it the next week and you think, like, the cat t-shirt on Instagram, like, why on earth might I have wanted that? Or 20% off, you know, 2,000 tea bags.
It's as simple as sleeping on it, isn't it? That's a tiny way to start budgeting, just to go gently into slowly changing those habits.
There's a rule, like the 24-hour rule, and then I align that with having a money buddy. And so having 24 hours after you want the thing, and you've got to wait 24 hours for it. And then also, if you elect someone, I choose someone personally that's got similar style to me, because otherwise they'd be constantly saying no. But you say, right, this is what I want to buy. And then after 24 hours, you go back and I'm like, I still definitely want it. And they're like, yeah, okay. And choosing it, but then having that discussion and almost like pitching it to them, like, this is where I'm going to wear it, this is how it's going to be useful.
The cost per use.
Yes, exactly. That's how I've found this to help me a lot. That is, again, a habit.
Being perfect is a big expectation as well, and that sets you back because it's too big an expectation. So, you know, just remind yourself, you don't have to be like the world's best saver and every spare penny is going into a special savings account for whatever it is that you're dreaming of. You are allowed to treat yourself. It's just about figuring out, is this worth it for me, this treat? Is it something that's going to add value to my day? Or if it's spontaneous in the moment, that's okay too.
The Q&A are really building up, so I'm going to try and whiz us through the remaining questions as quickly as possible. Just a very quick build on that budgeting point. When the cost of living crisis first started and prices were rising, I found it far easier to stick to a budgeting habit by budgeting weekly as opposed to monthly. I have no idea what I did on the 22nd of April. I can remember what I did last Wednesday. And so when you're starting a new habit, that regularity and building your streak is really important. So a lot of people who feel anxious about numbers avoid dealing with their money worries, and as a result, bills and debt can pile up. Practical action, charities, for example.
Yeah, we would always say get not-for-profit debt advice from Step Change or National National Deadline or from Citizens Advice. But I think the important thing is to be honest. You're only lying to yourself if you miss out one bill when you're trying to pull together everything that you owe. If you are sort of talking about last month's balance instead of the balance as it is today, if you're dealing with debt, the important thing when you're gathering all that information about what it is that you owe is just to be honest with yourself, because the only person you're hurting by not being honest is you.
Yeah. And Sam, you've when you talk about numbers, I think you speak really well about the feelings behind numbers, but that applies to finances too as well, right? Like recognizing your feelings, taking your time and that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we talk about maths, it kind of has some very similarities when we were just talking about budgeting.
Mm-hmm.
Maths in the same way as budgeting, that can strike fear into many of us. It feels like a technical term. It feels like something I don't know how to do. And we've heard great advice about taking small steps, about not having to do it all at once, that there's something you can build up, because they're also both skills that can be developed and can be learned. Often though, that first step's really, really difficult. So I think there's lots of different things you could do. You've, Timmy, shared a great resource on National Numeracy Day on the National Numeracy website about tips to better manage your money. They're also all about building your confidence as well. I think your confidence with numbers can really help you start to make changes. So I'd also recommend the National Numeracy Challenge, which is an adaptive online tool to really help you start to build your confidence with numbers. Crucially, it's something that anyone can take. They can get started in 10 minutes. And like I say, the best thing about it is if you're struggling, that you're finding it hard as a way to get into, you can do it in your own time, in your own space. You're not going to be put on the spot. No one else is going to see it. You can do it. It's yours, and that can help you to start experiencing success. Can show that everybody can get on with numbers and can improve, and you'll learn that through the National Numeracy Challenge. And then as a result of that, I think facing the information that you're confronted with, hopefully.
Thank you very much.
I got my 6-year annual warning last week. I've done it every single year, and it said, right, that's it. It's your turn again. You've do your annual checkup on the National Numeracy Challenge. So, yeah, I can highly recommend it. It's a great place to start and just feel a little bit more comfortable to then go out and keep up recognizing numbers. Try and add up the restaurant bill before the bill comes. As you're buying the food, you're just playing with numbers a little bit at a time in your daily life, and that's exactly what is in the National Numeracy Challenge. It's really real life scenarios, I would say.
Yeah, what should be in maths lessons but isn't.
Yes.
and just as a final build on that, money worries, speak to a friend, speak to a person that you trust. A lot of things that you think you might be going through financially might actually be something that someone that you trust is also going through. So it's okay to normalize these things.
You.
Yeah.
It's never just you, and that's whether you're someone who's a high earner, a middle earner, a low earner, everybody has financial problems, anxieties, worries. If you don't, that's not normal.
Yeah.
People who've messaged us before at Money Saving Expert have said, I finally told my partner about the debt that I was in, that I've been hiding from them. And the biggest thing that they consistently say is, I finally slept last night, because they've dealt with it instead of letting it build up and it can destroy relationships, it can destroy families, it can destroy home life. So just take their feedback that when they did it they could sleep. If that's you, that's how they felt, and that's how you'll feel too.
Thank you. Abby, just inviting you to lead on this final question, but the others will chip in as well. Spending and saving, when we're all a bit cash strapped, is it even possible to save? What's your thoughts?
Yes. And it's that automation habit that everyone, I think, has said so far, it's the habit. Can you do just a small amount? Can you put it somewhere as well that's going to be actually working for you? Don't just put it in cash, effectively. Like, try and make it start working for you. But if it feels completely irrational, then the idea between like those Monzo like top up pots, where if you've spent 95p, it will put 5p away. They can be really easy ways to save without realizing you're saving, because it can feel really overwhelming. But no one has to save £1,000 a month in their first go.
No.
You can start really small and you're still a saver. That would be my suggestion for sure.
Yeah. And as a build to that, I think if you haven't done reviewing your subscriptions is just a very easy way to unlock whatever you were paying for monthly times 12, and then you can put that money into savings as well.
And remember everything, even the credit card you took out 2 years ago that has got the subscription on it that you didn't realize.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guilty.
Okay, final question to everyone before we go into the audience questions. What can people do to feel more confident with numbers? Sam, I'll start with you. Just a quick tip.
Yeah, I think I've tried to cover it. Take the time. Don't be forced into making a rash decision. Start in your own time. If you feel like you're lacking confidence, you need to be able to feel safe in a space to start changing that. So take a moment, take your time, break things down, and start. Make a start. I think that's the biggest thing that I would say.
And taking the challenge, of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's about practice and consistency. So, there's really simple things you can do every day. I think both Claire and I have mentioned don't take things as read, scrutinize. So if you're getting a bill at the restaurant, then just add it up from the menu yourself. Like it might take 5 minutes longer to get the bill paid, but it's just something you can do to just get a little bit of consistency in checking your numbers.
Thank you.
I would just say normalize conversations about money. I mean, before I even go into the restaurant, a group of us went out at the FT for lunch today, and I said, what are we doing? Are we splitting this equally? Are we itemizing? Because I'm happy to be scribe, if that's the case. It's just like, get it out there. And I don't mind making a prat of myself and being the person who says something and then the awkward feeling goes, because trust me, like everyone is feeling the pinch at the moment. If somebody had said, well, look, can we not go to that restaurant? Could we just go to a sandwich shop or get something in the canteen instead? Then that would have been equally fine. I think, when you're in these social situations, you've got to be aware of the underlying dynamic in the group. And, everybody has money worries, as we said. Everyone has budgets. Just normalizing the phrase, sorry, that's not in the budget this month. Let's do something else. But it's really, really hard to get these things out into the open. Just do it. The more you do it, the easier it becomes.
And I would say that pre-pandemic, those conversations were maybe a bit awkward, but post-pandemic, I found that people in my social circles are actually a lot happier to talk about that. I see some nods in the audience as well.
Yeah.
What can people do to be more confident?
I take a slightly different stance to this. I say educate. So if you can, I think I'm the world's most fun aunt, but I might not be when I tell you what I do with my niece. So when we spend time together, normally it's like Barbies and how quickly can I run around a building? That's not my idea of fun. So I'm like, right, come and sit with Auntie Abby. Let's put the coins out. Let's put the pennies out. Can you count for me? Can you do that? And I find that really fun way to engage with numbers, but also engaging that one-on-one time with her. And I know she really enjoys that. So if you have a young person in your life, can you start to use time you have with them to not only, okay, you might not be teaching yourself what 50p looks like, but you're definitely teaching them and they're enjoying it. And you're kind of building your own confidence by being like, I know enough to teach a 5-year-old. And then as they grow up, you know enough to teach a 7-year-old. And do you know what I mean? You're building on that, and you're also having a nice time with someone that you love.
You're showing it's valuable. You're showing a positive attitude towards it, and the young people in your lives are picking up on that.
Exactly.
And they're more likely to have a positive attitude. They're more likely to have their confidence to start with.
Yeah, because money mindset, there's that study about obviously your money mindset being developed by age 7. And I think it's really important to just have those conversations. And like you said, be really positive about it. Not everything has to be negative. And young people as well. My niece is like 4. She's very switched on. Like she's like, well, can I keep this now? And I'm like, hold on. I'll just put my pennies out. I need them back now. Well, exactly. But that's it. It's fun and it's engaging, and their personality comes through as well.
If you can, keep getting young people using choices as well about money early on, because that is a really important building block that some research has shown that it really sticks past if they haven't got it past primary school age, it's a lot harder to learn. So with my godson, I took him out for the day and I said, here's a £5 note. This is what you can get from the gift shop, but you can choose. So then it was a payoff between the big thing or two little things. And, starting to have that sort of attitude around it and letting them make choices with it, if possible, then that can be a really healthy way to start people young on thinking about the money and the numbers in their head.
Thank you to all the panelists for answering the formal questions, and to the live audience and at-home audience for sitting through. We now come on to the Q&A, and I'm simply going to start from the top and work my way to the bottom. And again, it's just to the floor, whoever wants to jump in. So we've had a question from one of our viewers. I don't know where to start when it comes to getting to grips with my money because I lack confidence with numbers. Any advice on where to start?
A combination of everything we've said.
Yeah, I feel like it's been been addressed.
I'll highly recommend everybody's own things. So Tim and Abby, your social media profiles, Claire's podcast, my website, Money Saving, not my website, the website I work for, Money Saving Expert, and the National Numeracy Challenge website. They National Numeracy have some great resources for adults as well, just getting started. So we're all here, and you've got some organizations here who are all here to help and exist to help.
But maybe pick one thing, and that might be checking your bank balance every week or every day. I had a problem with checking my bank balance for a long time when I just graduated. I was trying to get a job in journalism, working everywhere for free, just living on this, living on the edge, literally thinking I don't really know how things are going to work out if I don't get a job soon. It can be very, very challenging to look at, to open the post. Now it's opening emails. Of course it's different, but I mean, maybe making mini steps towards building a budget, thinking about a specific financial challenge, whether it's like you would like to open a savings account. Having a financial to-do list is something that I have, and I have sort of like these long-term jobs on there that never seem to go away, like finally sort out power of attorney. If you're very young, then maybe you don't have to worry about that quite so much yet, but there are things that are on there week to week, like I mentioned about having a diary and being organized earlier. Like I know I've got to renew my home insurance at the end of the month, which is going to mean half a day of phoning around and filling in questionnaires online in order to get the best cover for the best price. But I know that I've got to do it before the 24th of June. So at some point I'm going to have to factor in doing that. But that's what I was saying about like being organized and knowing what's coming up, and that can save you a lot of money when it comes to paying bills late and being fined, having a parking ticket double in value, all of these other financial shocks and charges that can come and take you unawares.
Thank you. And just for all your benefit, we have 10 minutes until close and 20 questions. So let's try and get through as much of these questions as possible. This is quite a juicy one. Do you think the pension age will keep rising? I'm 34. I'm worried this age will keep rising. So by the time I want to retire, it goes to 70 plus.
Yes,
Any thoughts?
it will.
It will, yeah.
It will. So you need to make the most of whatever pension arrangements your company, your employer, or if you're self-employed, you can set up for yourself. Explore a limited company structure if you are a freelancer. The pension options can be better there. And pensions is something that is not a dirty word, but it was very, very different for the older generation than it is for us, the younger generation. It's something that we all need to educate ourselves about more. But the sooner you start, the better the outcome will be.
And also never opt out of your employer's workplace pension if you are employed, because it's a free contribution into your pension. At the moment, it's auto-enrolled, but people do choose to opt out. I would say try not to if you can avoid it.
It's free money.
Thank you very much. What should they teach us about money at school?
Oh, well, we were part of the campaign for financial education to get on the curriculum, and it is on the curriculum, but it is very under-resourced. It's very sort of disparate. And there's a great organisation called Young Money who have a framework for schools. So if you're in education, to help you figure out what it is that you can teach that fits into your curriculum requirements. So it's very achievable. You know, schools have got so much to deliver. Personally, I think the thing that needs to be taught in financial education is what I said earlier, the value for money, the payoff.
I mean, I would add to that how the world works, tax, the economy. Some of these things you're going to learn if you do a specialist subject like economics, but everybody needs to learn about this. Deborah Meaden from Dragon's Den, one of the great things about my job is that I get to interview people, including her. She's got a book coming out this week for teenagers. Deborah Meaden Talks Money, and a huge amount of the information for teens in that book is preparing them for the world of work. How do pay slips work? You know, what is a pension? Why is it important to you to have that when you're young, when you don't need the money until you're really, really old? Well, surprise, surprise, because it has an awful lot of time to grow. If you wanted to start your own business, there's a whole chapter on that, about profit, loss, how you can have a company that makes money. If your cash flow dries up, then you'll go bust. These are things that I would have been really interested in if they were part of a school maths lesson or PHSE lesson. And it's really great that the cross-party education committee recognises that, but let's speed it up.
Yeah, I would just add, we learn a lot of abstract maths at school. We learn it quite quickly, particularly compared to other education systems. We move up into the abstract quite a lot, and we know at national numeracy that the fear that people often, and the anxiety people develop towards numbers and maths, comes from that abstract nature that they can sometimes develop at school, and that's a system-wide issue. Financial education is a great context to demonstrate how maths can help you in every single person's life. What's it for? How's it going to actually benefit you as an individual? So it's making maths relatable through financial education is such a powerful way to start people to build their confidence with numbers, and therefore their confidence with managing their finances. So it absolutely should be in an integral context through which maths and numbers should be should be in the education system.
Thank you. And there's a quick build to that. I'd quite like to see kids be taught about the role of influencers in advertising, because when I was a child, an advert was on the radio or the TV or a billboard. Now you're being advertised to all the time. But that's another panel discussion.
Can I throw one more in there?
Yeah.
I won't build on it, but you should look into it. But myth busting student finance. If you're at school, there's a lot of misunderstanding about how student finance really works and whether it is actually a debt. So
it's
add
more
that.
because obviously schools want their kids to go to university for their own metrics, not because that's where they need to be going.
Yeah.
And as someone that teaches in schools, I feel very strongly about financial education in the curriculum. And I created my own curriculum because I think the Ofsted and ISI, it doesn't go far enough. And pay slips is a basic. Like, we should be creating these foundational levels before we do all the stuff that really kids want to do, which is investing and crypto and all of that. How can we lay those basics and do it from a really young age as well? Because 6 to 7 year olds are capable of learning basics and then adding on to that each year, rather than me having to go into a sixth form and throw everything in the kitchen sink at them. And it's always quite overwhelming, and they're not going to absorb everything. Yeah.
Thanks, Abby. My weekly shop is so much more expensive now than it's ever been. It's killing me. How can I make my budget go further?
We have something called the downshift challenge. It's really simple. Just drop a brand level on everything that you buy. See if you notice the difference. If you don't notice the difference, keep it that way. That said, food inflation is really like one of the main drivers now of what is remaining of inflation rate. And it isn't something we can massively solve right now. It will continue to rise. But there are ways that we can make things a bit easier. We can look at whether bulk buying is cheaper or actually more expensive, and whether downshifting is actually going to save us money, or whether it will end up more expensive in the long term because you have to use more of the products. So just notice a bit more in your food shop what you're using enough of. And then also the last one, I do this all the time, about once a month, is just do a cupboard clear out. So go through your cupboards, find everything that's in there, the bag of rice that's in the back of the cupboard, the vegetable that's kind of starting to go a bit soft, there's some great recipe websites online which you can throw different ingredients into, and it will give you something to make. So use it
That's
up.
cool.
I just add 3 very quick things to that. Meal planning, it works. It sounds boring, but it's great. Bring back home economics at school, I say, because that's where I was taught it. Number 2, yellow sticker shopping. I made a podcast about this, Money Clinic podcast, with the queen of yellow stickering, Yellow Sticker Gal. You can follow her on Instagram, and she will literally go to the supermarket, buy a load of stuff, as you say, find a recipe online, and make things. And finally, a really good app, trolley.co.uk, as in supermarket trolley. If there are things that you buy very often, like perhaps a particular brand of shampoo, or in my case coffee tablets, it will tell you pods rather, sorry, it will tell you who's got them on offer and when across like all of the retailers. So you can buy strategically. Also works for wine, the special treats in life, so if you want to save money, that's my tip.
Quick build to that. You can download a free wallet app like Stowcard, add all your loyalty cards to it, be loyal to everyone when you go shopping. Okay, we've kind of answered that question. Saving to buy a house seems impossible while rent is so high. What tips do you have for saving for a deposit?
It's an impossible square to circle, isn't it?
Have rich parents. Unhelpful tip of the day,
Yes.
but that is how a lot of people, the majority of people, are getting their deposit together. The bank of mum and dad.
Like the 9th biggest lender or something.
Top 10 for sure.
Top 10,
in
like,
the top 10 mortgage lenders. So don't feel bad. If your
No.
friends can afford to buy houses and you can't, it's often because they have got that financial help. I mean, it's worth mentioning the lifetime ISA. There are huge caveats, and you should read the lengthy article on the Money Saving Expert website that explains those. But if you are saving to buy a house, you're under 40 but over the age of 18, then you can get an account for the lifetime ISA, which gives you a 25% interest rate effectively. You can save up to £4,000 a year and get a £1,000 maximum pound government bonus on top if you use that money to go and buy a house. But the cap for the maximum property price that you can use to buy is £450,000, and that hasn't changed in the 7-8 years since it's been brought in. So lots of people in London and the South East have been caught out by that. But nevertheless, if you didn't know about the lifetime ISA and you're under 40, it's worth researching, but be aware of the limitations.
We have a campaign on this because if you do still use the money to buy a house, but then it goes over the limit, which happens a lot, again, London and the South East, but our research shows that's growing in other cities as well, like Bristol and Manchester and Edinburgh and York. So it's getting worse throughout the country. But if you withdraw the money so that you can buy a house still, but over the limit, you actually lose some of the savings that you put in. So you don't just lose the bonus, you lose the equivalent of about 6.25% of the original money that you saved. And we're campaigning to change that because we don't think that's very fair, particularly with house price inflation since the product was launched. So that's one of the caveats. So do look into it before you choose to save that way. But if it works for you and you can afford a house in your area with that budget, then you can get free money from the government effectively towards it.
Yep. And as a super quick build on what Katie's just said, because the lifetime ISA is £4,000 across the tax year flexibly, you can open it with £1 and then decide for the remainder of the year whether you want to put in the remaining £3,999. That brings us to close, unfortunately. It's been a fantastic conversation today. Thank you so much to all of our panelists, to our live audience, to the audience at home for tuning into today's first Big Number Natter Live. If you'd like to feel better about managing your money, building confidence with numbers is a crucial first step, and National Numeracy has lots of free practical resources to help you get started. Visit nationalnumeracy.org.uk to find out more. Also, on the National Numeracy website is the opportunity to try the National Numeracy Challenge. It's been mentioned a few times today. I've taken it. It's a great first way to dip your toe into getting more confident with numbers. A recording of today's Big Number Natter Live will be available on National Numeracy's YouTube and on the National Numeracy website. Thank you so much for joining us today, and have a very happy National Numeracy Day.
Thank you, Timmy.
Well done, Timmy.